So the last thing I really want to talk about was just color trends, just because it's sort of important. Um, it's very important, especially on the internet, that everything looks modern. In fact, actually, it affects your SEO, your search engine optimization. We'll talk a little bit about later. But having your content new and updated constantly, as well as the color schemes and such, will actually improve both from a algorithm standpoint, from Google's standpoint, but also from users. So, like if you go to color.adobe.com, I've already showed this before, but you can go to the trends section, and what it'll do is it'll show you trends that are happening in fashion. So this is particularly useful if you're trying to make a site that's dedicated to a certain industry, because I'll actually have ones for those industries more specifically. This is particularly easy inside of Adobe because you can click on them and they'll actually you can download them as a JPEG and then sample them, and they're readily available, and it kind of shows you exactly what the colors are. So this is a really nice resource. So if you're trying to make a website like for your project and stuff, this wouldn't be a bad place to start. Like, oh, I'm gonna do a game design one. You can look at these. You're gonna do one that's like a getaway or something. You could do this one, right? Or a food one. You'll see these different color palettes that you can just kind of utilize yourself, and it's already broken down for you. So that's really nice. Another thing you do is literally if you just go to color trend, you'll see that all the top ones are actually like the most major graphic design. So for instance, this Pantone, if you go there, you'll see that Pantone's like a color system. If you're in graphic design, you'll see that it deals more with print than digital, but it's still useful to know. And you'll see they actually have the color trends for like different periods of time. And so, like, if we go to like this one, this is autumn, winter 2024-25. Let's say we click on that. It'll kind of talk about, it almost reminds me of like when you go to the stupid recipe thing. They're like, this made me think of fall in when I used to go sledding or something. But it'll give you these different colors. Now, it is sort of an issue because obviously this has got more of a fashion slant, if you will. Um, but and they're giving you the Pantone number, so like it's a color system, kind of like RGB or hex codes, but they're different. But it, like I said, it's used for fashion and graphic design and stuff, printed elements. So, but you can find things here as well. This is a really large topic, and just like I was saying before, if you were in a graphic design program, you'd have a class just on typography. You may have a class that would be just on color. So when I worked at Fisher Price and I worked in the animation department, they would have these big meetings. They'd invite everybody, even our department, which we didn't make toys or anything. We just made stupid things. They invite everybody there, and then they have this big presentation, and they had like a committee, a group of people that all work together to try and predict what the future color trends are going to be. And then what they would do is basically what you see here. They have these swatches of like, this is the purple that we want to use based off of looking at all these magazines and all of this media. We're noticed that this purple we're predicting is going to be like the it purple. And then this is the yellow I know this wasn't purple, but this is the yellow that, blah, blah, blah. And so they would have a whole palette basically, and they would save it as a file, and then we could sample it. So if you were working in, the game stuff, or not game stuff, in the well, I guess they make games there too to some degree. But if you're working in like the toy part, you would sample it, and that's how you would design your toys, is utilizing those colors. So if you've ever looked at Fisher Price, you probably have noticed that they always like all their toys are the same purple, all of them are the same yellow, all of them are the same red. That's not by accident. They specifically decide that this is the color that we are going to use. And even inside of my department, because we were making animations based off of the toys, when we would paint our characters and like set pieces and things, we would sample those colors and then use them on the various pieces of geometry. So all the textures were basically based off of that same color scheme, so it would match the brand. So it's a very large field that there are people that are very dedicated to it, and they understand it far more than I do. I'd rather just have an easy button. That's why I always keep trying to show the color.adobe, or is it? Yeah, color.adobe, because I just find that easier. But it's definitely worth whatever you're going to be doing. It's definitely worth investing the time and doing a little research on what might make sense, and then going from there. But again, it kind of depends on what industry you're doing it for. So if you're doing something, when you're making your sites in the future here, and if it's like for food, there's gonna be different trends for the food industry than there might be for the graphic design industry, or like shoes will be different than maybe cars. There will probably be some cross pollination, but they might not necessarily be the same. So when you guys go to do your coloring and stuff, I just kind of threw colors in. I probably should have done a little bit better of a job. Make sure that you're investing in that, and educate yourself on it as much as you can. If you meet anybody who is like a fashion designer in particular, they are very hardcore about these things, because that's you're always trying to stay modern, and try to be the new cool. Okay, so that was my bit on color trends.